Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about my reflections about this class and what I learned and one of and what about my views and knowledge about Latin America and if they've changed. So to basically start off, I've learned a lot about Latin America in this class. Like I mentioned in the intro video, I had some decent knowledge, basically just talking about the Aztecs and the Mayans and stuff like that. But I didn't have a lot of knowledge in terms of other tribes and other countries and stuff like that from later on from that. And one of the big things that I learned that I still remember is um, when we were on the Columbia unit, and I have the notes sitting next to me, but I knew that their exports in the 20th century were a little bit about coffee and bananas, but I didn't realize that one of their exports would have been gold as well. Um, and then the other thing I didn't realize as well and had no idea about was Simon Bolivar's Gran Colombia experiment, which, basically would have joined present day Venezuela, Colombia together for the Republic of Colombia in 1819. And, that would have consisted of present day Colombia, present day Ecuador, and present day Venezuela. Um, that was something really interesting to think about and something that I never realized before necessarily that um, it kind of blew my mind a little bit because I knew Simon Bolivar was very influential in the conquests and stuff like that in Mexico, but I didn't realize he had that much of a influence in South of America. Um, Now, the other thing that I enjoyed and thought was pretty interesting as well was some of the documentaries rather that we got to watch. One of them being that Machilopolis video, talking about the life of factory workers and what the conditions were. I never realized exactly how bad it actually was in terms of the harshness and the chemicals that the local people had to go through. And then also, living in a semi-industrial life, but not quite to the American standard of where we have factories here in like Michigan and all across the country, but rather it's more, I almost want to call it third world almost, but because it's different than the U.S., but it's almost also, quite not quite poor per se in a country like that because they were still working and so they still had money coming in, although it may not have been a lot. And so that opened my eyes a lot, and I did learn a lot about that in terms of just how what they had to go through, what the after effects were from working in those factories as well. Um, Now moving further back into another unit that we had talked about, um, probably it would have been the Chile unit, um, where one of the big um, trades and exports from Chile that I never quite realized would have been the nitrates for the fertilizer and explosives. Um, I would have thought it would have been more of the mining. I know there was some sort of aspect to that, but not quite as much as I was thinking. Because the Andes Mountains are basically all in that region. So there was a lot of things that I learned in terms of this. And to answer the question of, was this an interesting course? Absolutely, it was. Um, I that's why I ended up taking it. Was I wanted to learn a little bit more about it because we live pretty close to Central America with Mexico and all of that. All those other countries. It would have been, and it's still on my list to potentially go and visit those places in the future. So now that I have a little bit more information about them and a little bit more information about their past and their current economies and stuff like that, I think, um, you know, my future trip, if I do decide to go, would be um, a lot more worthwhile because I have a lot more information about the history of each countries and stuff, all the countries that we've learned and stuff like that. So, thank you very much for listening, and I really did enjoy this course, and thank you for, um, giving us a lot of information about this. I really did enjoy it. Thank you very much.